Hello and welcome to the Haelan Nurse Chronicles. My name is Dr. Lorre, and I will be your host. I'm a nurse and a trauma burnout expert. Today, we will be exploring the critical issue of nursing salaries and how they contribute to the national nursing shortage, which is actually a staffing problem, as millions of nurses are refusing to work in unsafe, understaffed, and under-resourced settings for unsatisfactory wages. So let's unpack some of the issues surrounding nurse wages and salaries. As nurses, we already know that the best strategy for increasing our pay is to job hop every year or two. Those who don't are left with compensation that doesn't even keep up with inflation. From direct care nursing to nurse educators to leaders to managers to nurse scientists, it's the same story everywhere. This is what you hear. We just don't have the budget to increase wages. Well, nonsense. What that really means is we choose not to budget for increased wages. The nurse staffing challenge has been exacerbated by various factors, with inadequate pay being a significant contributor. Nurses across the country have been grappling with uncompetitive salaries, prompting them to seek opportunities in different locations or even leave the profession altogether. There's a disparity in compensation that has led nurses to take a stand and demand fair wages and better working conditions through strikes and advocacy efforts. So let's talk a little bit about the national impact. According to MoneyGeek's analysis of nurses' salaries in over 100 US metro areas, the average gross pay for a registered nurse is $86,070. But when you adjust for taxes, the cost of living, that average take-home pay dwindles to $65,414. This discrepancy alone underscores the impact of local factors such as tax implications and living costs on nurses' earnings. But even within regions within the United States, and this would translate to other parts of the world as well, there's analysis by MoneyGeek revealed that there are significant regional disparities in nursing salaries, with some metro areas favoring better than others in terms of take-home pay after adjustments. For example, in Washington, D.C., a registered nurse's pre-tax salary is around $98,000, but the adjusted take-home pay is only $48,079 due to the high cost of living and taxes. Similarly, Honolulu sees gross pay of about $133,820, with an adjusted take-home pay of just $50,134. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, California and Texas emerge as states with several metro areas surpassing the national average for RN salaries. California's Sacramento area leads the pack, with nurses taking home $88,847 after adjustments, while in Houston, Texas, those nurses follow closely at $79,520. So the rise of travel nurses is one of the reasons and one of the mechanisms that nurses are taking back the control over their careers. So let's talk about the rise of travel nurses and those compensation trends. Given the substantial variations in nursing salaries across the country, the demand for travel nurses has been on the rise. But there's so much more to the travel nurse story than the prevailing narrative would have you believe. The headlines report that nurses are taking advantage. They're greedy. They don't care about their patients. Report like this one from NSI that indicates that travel nurses that earn up to $102 per hour or $212,000 annually, depending on the location. I don't know where they're getting their data, but that's certainly not what I'm seeing. Post-pandemic travel nurse contracts, according to nurse.org, are garnering about $50 an hour, which translates to about $105,000 annually. That's gross, not take home. So what is this? Now nurses are being gaslighted through their wages in the media, which overrepresented, which inflated what travel nurses are making by a factor of 100%, like a 2x factor. So the media would have you believe that nurses are making twice what they actually are earning. And then in the same paragraph, nurses are being blamed for seeking improved working conditions and competitive salaries. I mean, wow. Just wow. As an occupationally oppressed class, nurses are starting to rise up and require that they be paid competitively. No longer can most nurses afford to stay at one setting long term, even if they wanted to. Hospitals are using the same strategy like Amazon. It's called the hire to fire model. That means they hire people knowing that they're going to burn them out in 2 to 3 years, at which time they just hire another new grad or early career nurse with less experience at a lower price. So what options does a nurse have if their wages aren't keeping up with inflation? If their raises are non-existent or insignificant? If their workplace is unsafe, understaffed, under-resourced, uncivil, or fraught with workplace violence, what are they to do? Well, many nurses are doing just this. They are becoming free agents. They are taking the reins of their career and are directing the course of where, when, how they will work in terms of setting compensation and work-life balance. Now, this can traditionally be done by two means. You can job hop or you can travel nurse. And let me be clear, there is no shame in the travel nurse game. My own daughter is a travel nurse, and I supported that decision wholeheartedly. Why? Because she, by the end of her first year in practice, like millions of other nurses, are discovering that the game is rigged. The deck is stacked against the nurses. So taking back your power, taking back your control is a rational decision for some. But what about nurses who prefer a longer-term employment option, or travel nursing isn't an option for them? Well, for these nurses, there are really just two options. The first is, as my mom would like to say, suck it up, buttercup. Well, that's not a good option. Millions of nurses have sucked it up for decades, if not centuries, over our long history of nursing, and it's gotten us nowhere but traumatized, burned out, compassion fatigued, and morally injured, all of which have substantial health consequences across all health and wellness domains. So there's another option, and that is to learn how to heal, recover, and then insulate yourself from the broken healthcare system and its harsh working conditions. That's where my work comes in. I've spent over 5 years researching across 4 disciplines to bring forth a 5-step evidence-based process to help nurses do just that. And when we're working from our healed scars instead of our open wounds, we can collectively come together and require safe working conditions with robust compensation. There are so many places pushing burnout resources to nurses. It's like giving a cancer patient a bucket of chemo treatments and telling them to go heal themselves. It's like, here, nurses, here, do this for your burnout, do this for your burnout, go take better care of yourself, go work on your resilience, here's some resources. It's demoralizing. And it's a little bit gaslighty, if I dare say so myself. None of these places are actually creating a safe healing space for nurses to come together and be facilitated and supported in their healing. Until now. So my nonprofit organization, the Haelan Academy, which we'll drop the link to in the show notes, is offering its flagship Breakup with Burnout program for nurses. In this virtual container, we see you, we feel you, and we hear you, and we help you in your healing process. If you'd like to learn more, please join me for a free 90-minute webinar. Again, we'll drop that link in the show notes that unpacks the silent epidemic that is affecting millions of nurses, perhaps even you. So until next time, thank you so much for the important work that you are doing and for the amazing that you are. From my healer's heart to yours, namaste.